So this week we are going to talk about Annabelle, which is another movie from the Blumhouse guys, and I think James Wan's group of mates who did the Conjuring movies. I think it's the same filmmakers, the same team behind that.
Yeah, and our third and probably final doll edition of Frightfix, or scary toy edition of Frightfix.
Agreed, at least for a while.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good all-rounder though, because we've done Megan, which was like more futuristic and like Black Mirror-y. Then we did Chucky, which is quite funny, and then Annabelle always seemed like the one we were comparing everything else to. So I am glad that we did it all in succession.
Yes. Have you seen this before?
The what?
Like, is this the first time you've watched it?
Oh, have I seen it? Right. I thought you were talking about a film called Before. I was like,
it should be a film.
No. Yes, I had. I saw it in the cinema. And it was one of those films where it was massively hyped up, like The Conjuring, and I think Sinister was another one. Like, so, you know, some of those films that you go and see with your friends because like
landmark horror movies.
Yeah. So I went to go and see it in the cinema, but I didn't remember a single thing from it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't even, because usually I can get the vibe of the film if I've seen it before, because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the kind of slightly the plot and the way it made me feel, but not necessarily the scenes. But this time I just didn't remember any of it. Must have blanked it out.
Oh gosh, that's probably a good way to go in, actually, because I remembered all of it, like pretty much once I watched it again for this review. It kind of jogged loads of memories, and I think I could kind of recall every scene again. And but I didn't watch it in the cinema like you.
Yeah. So what did you think then?
You know, there's something so freaky and creepy about that Annabelle doll. I don't know if the doll's name is Annabelle. Yeah, the doll's name is Annabelle, right?
Yeah. Well, the lady's name is Annabelle that goes into the doll, that cult person. Yeah.
Annabelle Higgins or whatever
the
person's called. Yeah. So it's something about that kind of creepy Victorian looking porcelain face with the paintwork mouth and eyes, and the paint's like peeling off, and I don't know, there's something so creepy about that shiny Annabelle face.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Oh my gosh! Like so the original Annabelle doll, because this is meant to be based on like a true story, or the Annabelle doll has been meant to be based on a true story. And I've seen pictures of it online, and it just looks like some fluffy little doll, like
it's is it a Raggedy Ann doll? I think it might be, which is like the cutest, one of the cutest dolls ever. Like it's like a fabric doll, not a porcelain doll.
That's right.
It's got like ginger hair. Yeah, I think it's a Raggedy Ann, which is like a famous, very cute toy, which could not scare anything. Like if it's made out of fabric, it's not going to kill you, but if it's made out of porcelain, you're dead.
Oh dear. It's like the moment you introduce any kind of Victorian era looking item into a movie, it suddenly just looks like it's possessed, or it's got some demon,
or it's got a history. I also think that this one, she's particularly scary because of her size. Like she's a bit bigger than other dolls,
like a toddler size or something.
And the way that Mia picks her up, like she's almost unnaturally big, and she puts her on the shelf, and I don't know, it's just that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah. I don't know, something I kind of misremembered of this film. A part of me thought the Warrens were meant to be in this movie, but they don't show up. And I don't know, I think I was watching the whole movie waiting for them to turn up. I thought they were going to turn up at the end, or the third act, to help Mia kind of recover from this possession. But then I realized I'm kind of mixing a bunch of movies together or something.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in the same vein, so I'd see why you'd think that. And also it would have been a cool addition to have them, because Annabelle ends up in the Warrens' basement museum thing. So I would understand where that came from, because that's The Conjuring, isn't it? Is it that she's in?
No, she's in another. Actually, well, I think she features briefly in one of them, but there's another one of the. I think it might be the third Annabelle movie, where it's set in the Warrens' house with their daughter. Yeah, and that's when Annabelle kind of picks up. But there's scenes in this movie that are picked up in other Annabelle movies, like that. break-in scene with the next door, where the couple is killed in bed or whatever.
Yeah.
That scene, it's shown from that point of view in another movie.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that scene, actually, with the murder happening next door. And we just got this take where we kind of watch Mia kind of wait outside the house. And
yeah. And
know,
it was what I liked about that was so she was lying in bed and you see through her window.
Yeah.
Like blood spatter, don't you, on the wall, but it's silent. Yeah,
so through her window while she's asleep or whatever. No, actually, what she's like, I think she's sitting up, and you look through her window and into the house next door, and you can see one half of the couple kind of get out of bed to investigate a noise, whilst the other person is still in bed, and then you just see this kind of this man or woman run up to the person in bed and like stab them or something. But then by that point, it kind of lights go out, and
it's all quiet, and so from Mia's point of view, you actually don't know if there's anything wrong. And I'm glad that they both, her and her husband, got up out of bed to like go and investigate. But I don't know, it just freaks you out to think that that was a possibility.
It just played out so realistically, like that could happen. You could be in that situation where someone next door is getting murdered, and I don't know, what do you do? Do you go and investigate, or do you just kind of call the police and don't bother going next door?
And then the fact that the threat comes inside to their house, and it like bursts their family bubble of niceness and getting ready for their baby. It's actually more terrifying than a lot of this film, because it's more realistic than anything else. Like Annabelle, you can kind of say that's a theatrical horror trope, but a break-in is going to be scary for everybody.
Yeah, it's like, why don't people like lock their back doors and lock their windows? And you could avoid so much of this. But as you were just saying that, it's like, I'm probably overthinking this now, but you know how you were saying that, like when someone breaks in, it's kind of like, bursting that kind of family bubble of comfort or whatever. It's almost like the person breaking into the house was the knife and that house was the womb. Ooh. And then someone comes and like,
oh my God, that is so creative. I didn't think of that.
You just inspire me, Celia.
Yeah, but you're the one that's you need to be a writer. You need to write this stuff down.
Trust me, I'm the worst writer ever. I need someone else to start something, and then I can kind of like, and then you can
Yeah, my problem with the whole, if we talk about like the people who break in end up being a satanic cult, and it's at the time of the Manson murders. So satanic panic is a real thing, and it's a very isolating point in the film where Mia gets traumatized by it and is on bed rest. It kind of pushes the film forwards. And ultimately Annabelle, which is one of the satanic cult members, dies in their house and then like transfers her essence into the doll. So Annabelle the doll doesn't start being bad. She's then possessed, I suppose, by Annabelle.
Yeah, because I think Annabelle is holding the doll, and I think a drop of Annabelle's blood goes into the doll.
Right.
And it's suggested, or it's implied, that maybe that's the point when the doll is possessed. But in a weird kind of way, why on earth did Annabelle run to the doll? Like, why did Annabelle even grab the doll? Because at first I thought maybe the doll was drawing Annabelle towards the doll, or was
she knew, like maybe Annabelle knew that that's what would happen, kind of like in Chucky when he finds the doll because he wants to transfer his soul into the doll.
I see.
Like maybe it's something like that, but then what I don't understand is it ends up being that, so as Annabelle gets more powerful as the doll and more things start happening, Mia finds out that it's a demon is trying to take a willing life.
Yeah.
So take a life that's not forced. And they're hoping that it would be, I guess, Mia, because he blackmails her basically by trying to take a baby and ends up taking Mia. But when did it, maybe I missed something, but when did it turn from Annabelle being the bad guy as the satanic cult member who possessed the doll like Chucky does, to then it being a demon who's doing it?
No, I think the demon maybe had possessed the Annabelle girl.
Oh.
And then that was then because Annabelle Higgins, had committed suicide, the soul was then, or the demon was then transferred to the doll, I think.
Right, okay. Yeah, I must have missed that, because by the end I was like, hang on, so what was the point Annabelle felt like a middleman to getting, like, why didn't the demon just go directly into the doll if that's what it wanted to do? But that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think I might be misremembering, but that's how I kind of read it.
I feel like one of the things that bugs me about this film is it starts quite a few cool ideas, but then doesn't really end them. Like there were two major ones for me. One was, this is obviously a reflection of Rosemary's Baby. Like, her name is Mia. It's almost the same plot, like an isolated woman who's pregnant and has a baby, and then nobody believes her that there's something wrong, that someone's trying to take her baby.
I was thinking of Rosemary's Baby the entire time.
Yeah. And it's so on the nose. And the whole satanic cult bit, that's how Rosemary's Baby ends. But the satanic cult thing for me just kind of ends. Like, it doesn't come back into play at all. Like, the idea of being stalked and harassed by these cult members is a distant memory by the end. It's something that happened and doesn't feed through to the rest of the film.
No.
And the same with the idea of isolation and motherhood, whereas Rosemary's Baby draws that out right to the end. Like, that is the string that ties the whole thing together. This kind of starts doing that, but then again doesn't make that part of the plot by the end. It's almost like the first act builds up lots of interesting ideas, and then it just turns into more of a generic horror film by the end, which is cool to watch and a bit scary. But you kind of end it but thinking, hang on, but there was like 4 or 5 different things that were discussed that now haven't materialized or been resolved.
Yeah, because the first time I watched Annabelle, I really liked it. Like, I was really, really into it. And then I watched Rosemary's Baby afterwards when we did the review for it. And now after watching Rosemary's Baby and watching Annabelle a second time, you can kind of see how the movie is like a very dilute, like a diet version of Rosemary's Baby, and it's missing a lot of the layers.
Yeah, like the turmoil that Rosemary feels when she's not believed, and that panic you feel when it's getting closer and closer to the crunch point of something really bad's about to happen, and you just want to shake everyone and say, listen to her, like, listen to this woman who's telling you how she feels. And like, I just feel like this film doesn't really do that justice if they're gonna do a Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, it's weird because with this movie, even though I mostly remembered what was going to happen, like, there was still some bits which I was a bit kind of vague on or a bit blurry on, and I kept thinking that the guy or the character who's modelled after Guy, Rosemary's Baby, I kept thinking he was going to turn out to be a bad guy, or he was gonna, and I think I just had Rosemary's Baby imprinted onto me. Or I kept thinking, like, it's gonna, because there was a point where he was a bit weird, like a bit kind of distant with her, or a bit kind of gaslighting with her, and I thought he's having an affair or something's going to happen, or like I kept thinking he was a bad guy, but no, he was just a nice guy. And
well, that's it. He just ends up being the husband, and like she just ends up being the wife. Like, there's no answered questions from it. It's like, nope, they just turn out to be who they said they were at the beginning.
Which is
like what was the other lady's name who sacrifices herself at the end? Evelyn ends up being a great lady, as she was throughout the whole film.
Yeah, at the beginning there's a bit kind of is she, isn't she, like trouble, like when you first introduced her, but no, she just turns out to be
she turns out to be really nice.
So she masquerades as a nice person. It actually turns out to be a nice person. and her whole character is just her. I mean, you kind of get introduced to her like she's lost a daughter, and she's kind of like grieving there and whatnot, but her whole character is set up to be someone who, I suppose maybe it's because I watched it a second time, it was more apparent, but it's like she's just been built up and set up to be someone that dies, or someone that kind of takes the bullet for Mia and her husband.
See, I think that might be because you're watching it for the second time, because I was pleasantly surprised by it, because I didn't remember it. I didn't actually see that coming. Maybe it was me, but I didn't assume that was the case. So I actually thought that was quite a cool scene, because I was like, oh no, she's sacrificing herself, and that makes so much sense. And like, a lot of these possession or demonic films, you need to find a loophole, or you need to find something that will change the rules of the game. And that's quite a cool one of like, oh yeah, if she sacrifices herself willingly, Mia can get her baby back. But I do see what you mean. But for me, it was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I just found that whole the death as well just really limp, because it's like 1 minute Mia's about to jump out the window and her husband's like, don't do it, you know, think about our kid and blah blah blah, and then suddenly Evelyn says, don't worry, I'll do it because I can, or whatever. And then she just kind of, you just see her push herself back off the window, and the camera just cuts to Mia and her husband for ages, and it's ages after they look out the window and you see Evelyn on the floor. But I just felt like this person, Evelyn, is doing this kind of grand gesture, this grand sacrifice. I felt like there should have been a bit more emphasis on her, or, you know, just kind of showing this moment. But if you watch that scene again, it happens so quickly, and it's like such a last minute thing, and I didn't get the gravity of it.
I see what you mean. I do think that this film really lacks in its second half when it becomes a normal horror film, and you know, maybe we're a bit disenfranchised with it because we've seen so many, but I do remember this being quite scary, and I'm not saying it wasn't, because it did make me jump multiple times with but it's very, like, it's generic. It's like really loud slamming doors, or music that's coming out of nowhere, or shadows going past the back. And I don't know if I'm a bit bored of it or what, but I read a quote which I thought was really good. And someone said, the scares don't stay with you. They're the horror movie equivalent of junk food. Like, you know, they're just like basic, scary and fun, but then they don't linger, they just go. I agree with you. The first time I'd watched this movie, I thought it was great, because I was quite early on in my horror movie journey and whatnot, and Annabelle was a standout when I first watched it. And I remember seeing that the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, and thinking, why do people hate this movie? Like, why do critics hate it? It's like, they're wrong, but watching it a second time, I get it now. Like, and I think it is, we've just watched so many of these things, and it's like, the movie, I agree, the movie has the jump scares in the right places, and there are some genuinely good moments. Like the two moments that kind of stuck with me when I watched the film the first time around, and I was like, it was nice to be reminded and go through those scenes again. The first being, you see like Mia's in her apartment, and there's the room she's in, the door's open, and there's a corridor, and then on the other side there's another room where the door is open, and she sees this little child on the other side, and then that child begins running up to Mia, but Mia's door closes, and suddenly Mia's door opens again, and it's like this fully grown woman, and running after Mia. And like, just thinking about it, I don't know if I've described it to listeners properly, but it's got like my hair standing just thinking about it. But there's that, I thought was great, and I remember liking that bit the first time around. And then the second scene I really liked, the second moment, was when Mia sees Annabelle move for the first time, and Annabelle kind of like floats up about a meter off the ground, and so Annabelle, the doll's head, is about the same height as Mia's head, and then the camera slowly zooms into, or you know, slowly goes towards Annabelle's face, and then a demon kind of goes hello and pokes his head out the side, and I just thought that was it was just well put together, and it's making me want to look behind my shoulder. Like, I know there's nothing there, but I totally agree. Those are the two scenes that I would have picked up as well. I think what makes the second one really scary is that, like, the implication that the demon was holding Annabelle and like picking her up, and then you think, so every time Annabelle moves, is that the demon moving her around, taking her around, like, you know, the presence of that demon. That those two scenes were for sure the scariest bits. The other thing that freaked me out, and I liked it because it was so different from the other two films we've seen, Chucky and Megan, is that Annabelle doesn't move or do anything basically in this film. She barely moves, and she doesn't talk, which is really important, I think, to show how powerful and uncanny it is to have this doll, because its mere presence is what's scary. And I thought they did that really well. I love that they didn't go over the top with Annabelle's movements, because she doesn't come to life, or you don't see a stupid CGI face as she like comes to life. It's when she's in that rocking chair and it starts rocking and it's like nothing is happening, well, the rocking chair's rocking, but Annabelle's not moving, and that's creepy. That's so creepy.
Yeah. It's like you're reading my mind. Like, that was one of my notes as well. And there's this one scene in the film where I think the husband picks Annabelle up and puts her in the bedroom, like early on in the film, and you just have Annabelle's face really close to the camera while stuff's happening in the background, and the camera lingers on her face, and it's just like she's static. She's not, she's stationary. She's not doing anything. And I just kept expecting Annabelle to move, like head slowly twist, or a little tiny bit of movement, but nothing happened. They didn't go down that route. And it just shows that I think just the doll's design, I don't know, is inherently quite scary.
It is. And especially what I really appreciated was when so they have this doll to start with, and it's a really lovely present because Mia, the weirdo, has been collecting these dolls and loves them so much and thinks they're the best thing ever. And then she starts getting scared of it after the break-in, and everything starts changing, and she asks her husband to throw it away. So he puts it in the outside bin, and they move house. And then she finds the doll at the bottom of one of her moving boxes. But because it's been in the bin, she looks more weathered, and she's got slightly like almost like running mascara, or like around her eyes is darker. The cracks,
like mold on the face, and
like the cracks in her face are darker, and it's so subtle in ways because it's like nothing has changed about her, but she seems angry at you now. Like, she looks angry, and they didn't have to do anything other than make her just slightly more menacing, purely because she was in a bin and she could have just got dirty. And they zoom in on her face at that point as well. And you think, I mean, why did Mia go, oh, great, I'll put it back on the thing now that I've got it? And but even so, I thought that was a really cool effect. And I appreciated that, like how sinister it is.
Yeah. It's weird because when they first get Annabelle, like, Mia's really excited because she collects these kind of weird dolls. And the husband says something like, it took me ages to find, but we're going to be short on rent for the next 2 months, implying that it's an expensive item. And I just wondered, like, why didn't they just sell it rather than throwing it in the bin?
That's such a good point. Like, and also, how much did it cost? Like, that's insane that they couldn't pay rent. I mean, I do remember, you'll have to remind me, but is there a scene where they try and sell it, or it's found in a shop?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Maybe that's a different.
I think there's a flashback which shows how someone else got it. I don't remember.
And what film is it where the nurses are in a house and they get the doll? Is that?
I think that's just it's not so I don't think that's a full movie in itself. I think that's like a flashback scene. Like, maybe it may be one of the openings for one of the Annabelle movies. It might be this one, actually. So that scene is played again in another movie. There's another movie where they kind of elaborate on that scene. It might be the second Annabelle or the third one. Yeah.
I mean, I think that one of the creepiest scenes in this, and it wasn't the scariest because they come later, but the initial scene, because we know so much about Annabelle and she's become quite a cult image for horror films, and like she shows up in Aquaman, doesn't she? Is it Aquaman?
Yeah, because James Wan directed it,
and she's just like in the sea. I thought that was so weird. But it's become, if you think about a scary doll, Annabelle is what you think of. This film, Annabelle is what you think of, and they obviously wouldn't have known that at the time when they made this film, I don't think. But the opening scene where Mia opens the box from her husband, that's a surprise, and it ends up being Annabelle, is so creepy because we know how malevolent that doll becomes. And the way she cuddles it and loves it and puts it on her shelf, and there's quite lingering scenes of just looking at the doll that really creep you out when you know what it is, and that visceral reaction you get from seeing the doll. Yeah,
after watching Chucky, and when we see Mia first put Annabelle on a shelf next to all those other dolls, there's a part of me that I was half expecting them all the dolls to come alive and go like, yeah, what are we going to do now? Who are we going to kill now? And, just like all of them start talking, like Chucky style together. Or something.
Yeah, it's crazy how different the representation of a demonic doll is between Chucky and this one. Like, it's the opposite of Chucky.
Yeah. So, I mean, what did you think of the movie? Like, what's your kind of thoughts on it? Like, in terms of, did you like it? Did you not like it?
You know what? I think I probably would have liked it more if we weren't doing a podcast about horror films. I think if I was watching one horror film every few months, or even more than that, I would probably have enjoyed it more than I did. But I think I guessed almost every single scene as it came on. Maybe I'd been remembering it, but I don't think I was. I think I just knew because it's very formulaic and it feels a little bit flat, like especially the second half. I completely lost interest by the second half. But that's not to say that all the things that we've just said don't make it good. Annabelle is incredibly scary. There are some scenes that work really well. But I think that the plot just was the last thing on everybody's mind in this. Like the build-up of the characters wasn't quite there. And I mean, it's a shame because I always remember this film as being one of the good ones. Like this is part of the greats. But I don't think it is anymore. Like I don't think it's one of the films that I would put up there. Although I won't disregard the fact that it's started or it stands out in the doll films for the doll genre for its malevolence. And yeah, I think it deserves that, but the actual film itself, not something that I would probably watch again. I don't think. Don't know if it's too harsh.
No. I don't think you're being harsh at all. I think I actually agree with you. Like the first time I watched the film, I remember really enjoying it and thinking, okay, this is quite scary. I remember jumping at all the places where it needed me to. And I agree with you in the sense that if you're not like a horror fan and you just watch a horror movie every Halloween or something, and you're a casual, then I think you can't go wrong with this, like as a one-off viewing experience, because I think it is quite scary and I think it does keep you going. Yeah, you're right. The finale is a bit lame. Like it's not that great, but then very few of these horror movies have kind of good climaxes, to be honest.
I don't know why that happens. Like we do say that quite a lot, that the build-up was good and then it ends up just being another generic horror film. It's like if you just focus on making interesting scares that are different, that aren't banging doors, music, or shadows, like just think of some other stuff and that's going to be so fun.
Yeah. I think with any of these movies, the climax is only as good as like your first act, because anything like all the ingredients have to be demonstrated and shown in the first act, like in terms of like the story as well. Like what's the motivation, what are these characters afraid of, and not just like as in like someone's at the door or someone's making noises, but like what is their deepest fear, like what are they afraid of the most. Like in this case, I guess it was like losing a baby or something, or harm coming to your unborn child or whatever, and that payoff has to come in the third act. Like yes, but if the setup is rubbish, then the payoff is going to be just whatever. And I think with this, I think that it's Annabelle Wallis who plays Mia. I think she's a British actress.
Oh, is her name Annabelle?
Her name's Annabelle, yeah.
And she's in Peaky Blinders, isn't she? Is that her? Yeah, it is.
Possibly, I don't know. Yeah. But she's a good actress, and I think she kind of holds this film together. Like but with her, she's not given a huge amount to do other than just be scared and stuff. And the husband guy is so kind of like vanilla. Like his I mean, I'm sure he's a good actor, but
he's just there to disagree with her. Like his role is to not believe her at the beginning and then believe her. Like that's his role.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not much meat to the bone with this movie, and I mean, I don't want to be too harsh. I did like the film even the second time round, but it's not like a premium horror experience. It's kind of like if you want that, as you said with the junk food, if you want that kind of Big Mac horror movie, then
this is the one to go for. I think one of the things that I thought would have worked really well is if we cut out all the demon stuff and have the film about Annabelle Wallis and Annabelle Higgins going into the doll and basically the same thing, but we learn more about Annabelle as a person. And Mia does research and finds out that Annabelle's this terrible person that like steals babies or whatever, like does something, you know, and we build up knowing more about Annabelle as a person, and then that makes us really scared of Annabelle the doll because we know what's living in there, and like not convoluted by trying to get like a priest to do it, and you know, all the stuff that we've seen before, but make it more about Annabelle. And then you could that would tie in the whole satanic cult thing, because that's what we're learning about throughout the film, and the way that they get around it is somehow, you know, I don't know, but making that plot line go all the way through from beginning to end. Like the cult's the reason why Annabelle the doll is possessed, because they break into Mia's house, and then through Mia's research and like, you know, all the things that she does to really make a difference, she ends up being able to save her baby from Annabelle, who is the bad guy, not then it being a demon that then Annabelle is just being held by or is a conduit for. That would be my change to the plot.
I think one of the other Annabelle movies might actually talk more about Annabelle Higgins. I might be, gosh, I'm probably misremembering now. Yeah, I don't know, but I like your idea actually. Maybe it would have given a bit more like maybe it would have like attached us more emotionally to the doll. And
I just think I'm bored of seeing the demon being the reason why things happen. Like I'd just like to see a little bit more like interesting horror enemies.
Yeah.
And I do love a good research montage. I love when somebody figures out what the issue is.
Yeah. When they look through some old...
Yeah, they go to the library and they like find the thing, or they've got like a book spread out everywhere and they're like, oh, yeah. I didn't know that from this one history excerpt. I can see that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes, girl, you found it. The missing piece. But again, bit corny. But I like it.